my friends, and welcome to How to Make a Canework Bowl. It's brought to you by tinypandora.com. I'm using two colors and white. Your color choice just needs to be two colors that will blend well to make a third color. So in this case, I'm using Premo Accents Peacock Pearl and some Cadmium Yellow and my white, all by Sculpey. I'm going to make a nice blend. I think you'll be happy with the fact that this blend is going to make all of our main canes. It just takes a minute to do. So I want this in the middle because I want some nice vibrant green that goes to yellow and goes to blue. Putting those right next to each other to get that. Now I've got my white. This is all in a number 1 setting. I haven't conditioned it a lot because the blending process does that for you. I've just got it soft enough to put it in sheets. So my white on the ends is going to give me a gradient yellow and a gradient blue. And we're going to get a lot of color out of this one blend. And we're going to make 3 canes out of it. So I've already got my rectangle. Didn't take very long because we're not making it perfect to start with. We cut it the way we want. I'm going to measure this because if you have a 5-inch pasta machine, you want to allow for a little bit of spread since we're going to double this batch. And in order to do that, I'm just going to cut some shapes that are close enough and start to stack that up. As you see, it doesn't have to be super perfect. It's a really easy way to get a lot of blended clay pretty quickly. Tidy it up and no one will be the wiser. There, we've got it doubled up and ready to fold and put through the pasta machine. Usually do the first sheet just like that and put the fold into the second pass. I've got a nice striated choppy blend like, I always use. Most of you that watch me know that I don't like my blends too blendy. I like to use the stripe effect in the loose blends to enhance the cane, give more detail to it. In this one, it's really noticeable that the pieces are kind of separated. I think you'll like it. I'm going to put it through again. I don't want to over blend it. I'm just going to create my long strip that I'm going to need. And that's just right. I'm going to cut it right where the green and the blue start to blend in that really pretty section there. I'm going to make 3 canes out of these 2 pieces. Got that left over, the other colors left over. We'll be using that later. I'm going to make a long strip for my first jelly roll and put it through the pasta machine the one last time just to complete that blend and to make it a little bit longer. And we'll get it rolled up. So pretty easy so far, don't you think? I really thought it was. There's nothing hard about these canes, and you can use them for so many things. I'll get my jelly roll. Remember to make your first roll nice and tight so you don't have a hole in the middle. Squeeze in on the ends every so often. Keep it from going all wonky on you. Something about this color I just love. I bevel cut my ends. I guess that's not strictly necessary. It just leaves you with a straight edge. So, later when you're matching up sections, You don't have anything too wavy, but you know, that's just a holdover from kaleidoscope painting. Because the lines are so critical on that, and they're really not so much in this. My second two jelly rolls be from this one piece. So I'll cut it in half. That way I can make them look a little bit different from each other. We've already got a lot of color out of what we started with, I think. This one will have the white on the inside. And again, we're making a nice tight roll. Just continuing up the color. I've been dying to make a bowl with you guys. It's really fun to do this. I've got 2 other bowl videos you see on my channel if you want to look for them. They're different than this one in all kinds of ways. So now I've got a nice line there, and that's another reason I trim and bevel cut the edge. We're going to use that line later on when we build cane with that. The last one will have the green on the inside. That just brings us a lot of variety already to build our little canes. There's our leftover colors. I've sheeted them out in a number 2. And we'll be using them a little bit more later. I'm going to start by cutting this. I think you've probably seen this type of technique in a lot of flower videos. You know how you can make petals with these cut into 4 or 8 pieces, or even more really. But we just need 3 for our first cane, and we need the one for a different cane. So I'm going to cut it like this. And then I just want to shape them a little bit. You don't need to reduce them, get them long or anything, because they're really just harder to work with and match up the longer that they are at this stage. I'm just bringing that color around in kind of a little wavy curl, and just making it a little bit rounder because it's more pleasing a shape to me than the, you know, the pointy triangles. And just try to bring your edges in as evenly as you can. We're keeping our lines fairly symmetrical. These don't have to be perfect though. The way they fit together is pretty forgiving. So once you have them kind of matched up with each other, set that other one aside, and we're going to cut some yellow. We use 2 pieces in this cane, and we'll use the yellow on some of the fill for this cane. And you'll see that in a minute. That's why you have 3 pieces. That's on a number 5. It's pretty thin and fiddly and everything, but you know, canes is small. You can't really have big chunks of line in there. So kind of biting the bullet on that wavy stuff. It's all right. It's been kind of hot at the crypt where I work, but landlady was by recently and she adjusted the heat in there. It was kind of an oven. You'll see some of the later canes are just kind of flopping around a little bit. So for our center piece and the sides, I'm just going to use part of this cane. We're going to need it to fit in there. It kind of does, but we're going to need it longer. I'm going to add that yellow onto it. So I'll reduce it to fit the length properly. We're going to make that into a triangle and flatten it so it doesn't have to fill that entire space. It just has to fill the narrowest part of the triangle. I'm going to drop that yellow on. I'm going to kind of straighten it a little bit because now that line does show. Let's place it in there and press down on it. Now we'll get ready to fill those top channels with the other half of that half. We're going to start getting that ready to be a triangle with one larger side. To get that reduced, we're just going to have it about double its length so it fits in both those sections. We'll pop it in there. So we're already really getting a lot of mileage out of that one big blend. Making sure that that's kind of knitting together, filling the spot, curving a little bit before we start settling that into a triangle. These triangles with one large side are really easy to make into squares, so you don't have to worry about this one being equilateral. You're better off if it isn't. I'm going to get it a little more pointy and take it out to about twice its length. Go in a little closer. Start getting ready to, see how the pieces are going to go together. That's why we filled it, so that we can, have it be whole as a triangle. You don't have to cut this big a piece off, but when I'm showing you guys, I don't like them to be too thin. That together. And that's kind of why I didn't make a flower out of this. I wanted to have something, really unusual looking. And the other sides will go together like that once we cut it and recombine it. So I've got these two pieces left, and they're going to be the perfect thing for this cane. I've just squeezed them into kind of a triangle and a teardrop. The shape isn't super important here because we're going to make this into a square. So once we have them, in complementary shapes, I'm going to put them back together. They make such a pretty line of decor with those colors, because you've got all of your colors in the original blend. So when you put them back together, you don't have to worry about them, coordinating. So we'll get ready to make that square, because our rectangular shapes that we're building this bowl with are all just side-by-side squares. I'm going to take my square pairs. That's why I thought them up. I was always needing to do this one thing here, either for Natasha's, or for cane reduction, or for making round canes square, or for making soft squares into sharp squares. I need two of, the same size squares. And that's why they come in twos. The square benders are a different thing. They're a little bit sharper and they're a heavier tool. They're not hollow and they don't come in pairs. So that's the difference between square pairs and square benders. They kind of have different functions. These come in pairs of different sizes, because once I've got it started in the size that I want, I can use the next size to really get it refined and reduced if I want to. And this is to sharpen up the edges. It's really hard to pinch up evenly on little pieces like this, so I just like to squeeze them like this. When I put them back together, I've got my my rectangular cane. So if you've ever tried to put circles or squares on a bowl, it's really hard. That's why we're making rectangular strips that wrap around. I'm sure you're getting the idea now. So this last one, I'm going to use that line as a top point, make it into kind of a flattened teardrop, and put my 1/4-inch cane bender in it. And this is such a simple cane, and it makes such a sweet border. Now I could drop, you know, a color into that channel. That's going to give it a really different look. But I'm going to choose a sheet of white because so far this combination of canes, I don't feel like we have enough white. It's really pretty on this springy looking kind of mix. So that's pretty thin. That's like a 5 or 6. I don't normally go beyond a 6 for thinness unless I absolutely have to. See how the room's getting warmer? Clay's getting a little stickier there, and you know, we just gotta live with it. If it was cooler there today, I had to like put a sweater on, which I really prefer. So we're settling down that little line that we dropped in. And I'm doing it with my cane bender. I just want to make sure that when I lift it back out of there, I don't pull the line with it. You got to be kind of delicate with that part. Just settling the line down so it's fairly straight. When we close it up and pinch it back together, it'll look fine. I just kind of hold it down a little bit because that clay is pretty sticky. So as I said, we could have put something in that channel, but that's not the shape I'm looking for. So I'm just going to close that back up with that white inside of it. And the shape's not super important as long as it's uniform, because once again we're going to cut that and make it into a square. You know, I had to cut a lot out of this part because I can sit and mess with that all day long. And I thought, oh my gosh, you're always going to die of boredom. But yeah, I fiddled around with that for a while. I wanted that one shape, that one, I don't know what that is, half circle kind of thing. I put it back together. It makes this little, I don't know, it's so simple, but that cane kind of sets off the other canes. You can use a line of that between really every cane if you want to. I just used it once this time, but you'll see. So I've got those, and I've got my big cane. I still need to put it together and, you know, get it squared up. These canes don't need to be real big. So I'm going to cut it at this point. Then just bring it down with the square pairs a little bit to fit where we're going to put it. Remember, these canes of yours can be any size. You could have made them 5 times smaller and gone round and round, you know, your bowl. That's the fun of it. That's all your design options. That's where you're going to express your vision. And I encourage you to do that. This one's going to go together now. And we'll get ready to take it from diamond to square. We do that, you see in other videos. We're just rocking it. It's going to make a little bit of push out on each side. You just trim that off. It's really not a lot of waste. By the way, all the cutting from this makes incredible Natasha's, so be sure you keep them in a pile. You know, not over blended or anything, okay? When you want to make your Natashas, you want to take all your cuttings and just compress them to begin with. They don't get blended. This last blend is just a variation on the first one, and you can make it however you want to. But this is made from the leftover colors I had. I wanted to make a bottom for this bowl that showed all the colors we're using and wasn't a result of kaleidoscoping all the existing canes. And that way, you know, you've got something on the bottom that's really focal with everything spinning around it. That was the idea anyway. I'm going to cut this and make a stack. This ends up being kind of a modified Bargello look. Bargellos are offset lines, and I went ahead and let mine line up because with a Bargello that would have been a little busy for this bowl. But you could certainly use that if you like that technique. Bargello. And you can see a lot of tutorials on it. It's really pretty. So I've got my blend together. And I'm laying this out just the way I want to. And by now, I feel really relaxed. Really looking forward to putting these components on my bowl. Got a 1.5 inch cutter, which, you know, praise the goddess, exactly fits the bottom of that bowl. Those are my dollar store bowls. I think they're widely available. I want to make sure that first piece I lay on my bowl really fits well and is bubble free. You can pick it up a few times and move it around. You're not going to hurt it. Smooth it out and look at it from you know, the inside out a few times. If you had a bubble, it's not going to be the end of the world. It looks like kind of a, you know, like a different spot, but you can get most of them out when you begin by pressing them out to the outward edges. I'm bringing that circle all the way up to where the circle ends in the glass. So I've got my cane. You see I reduced that a little bit, cut it, put it in half, and reduced it. Because believe me, as I said, working with these strips is a whole lot easier than trying to piece together all those squares. It's kind of hell. I don't think you're going to like it. And take some nice slices. They don't have to be super, super thin. And believe it or not, this cane is going to go 2 revolutions around this bowl, one at the bottom and one at the top. So when we lay this out, this is where we have to start chanting our Pandora mantra. I think you know what that is. The clay is not the boss of us. Clay is not the boss of us. We are the boss of the clay. Because there's absolutely no reason that that rectangular strip can't curve, okay? Because we tell it to curve, it's going to curve. And now really all we've got to do is match up our ends each time. Make sure that they meet up. You can give them a little bit of pressure, kind of spread them out a little bit. So you have a lot of latitude, because if one strip was a little bit thinner, obviously you're not going to press on it as much as you would one that you might have cut a little bit thicker. You're just moving around the designs until they meet and match up. It's not till the very end that you really, really press everything down tight and connect it one to the other. Right now, this is just making sure that it looks good and then it's matched up. Sorry that's out of frame a little bit. When I have those close-ups and then I try to see what I'm doing, something's got to kind of give there, but I'll try to do better. You see, you want to make sure that you're filling in that seam right there between the two. Now we're going to repeat with our different canes. That little easy guy that we made there is going to divide one cane from the next in this section of the bowl. I want it pretty small. practice your cutting every chance you get. And every time you do it, you'll get better at it. I'm going to coax this around in another circle. And as I said, I'm not pushing every seam together yet. You're much better off to do that at the very end. The more you soften and warm this with your hands, the harder it is to hold on to, especially toward the end when you're really having to hold on to the bowl, where there's cane all over it. So we don't want to overwork it right now. There's my next row. See how that fit? Doesn't seem like it's going to fit. I knew when I started applying that I'm going to want to pull that up to that ridge, and it's very important that you don't try to fill in that space between the rim and the bowl with like another cane or anything. It's really hard to do. So when you're that close, just cut your slices a little bit thicker and see how you can pull them up to that point. You want to be really flexible with this, and at no point do you want to feel like, oh no, I've ruined it, it's not right. This is super, super forgiving. And as long as I push those to the same level and get the sides matching, there's no one in the world that's going to say, gee, I think that one slice is, slightly thinner or thicker. I don't sand these. I don't do any of that stuff because I just hate it. So this is the only part that I really carefully measure, and that's the distance around it and the width of that strip. Because I'm not going to try to fit a cane that doesn't fit into that crucial section. I'm going to make the cane exactly what size it needs to be, which in this case, I made it 1 inch wide by a 1/2 inch tall. I know I need just over 11 inches, and that you can easily, fudge. So now I've got these, approximately 1 inch pieces. I know they're going to reach the top. And I think the only thing about this that's really important is you don't want to push that past the top and then try to trim it. That just doesn't work. It cuts off part of the design, and that's really noticeable right there at the top. So I'm keeping the design where it belongs, right at the edge, so that when I touch it, I'm touching the cane and the rim. I've never ever had cane come off of these bowls, ever. So I got my last piece in, and it's at this point that I'm going to really take my time and settle everything down and get it as nice as I can. I'll pet it a little bit when it's all stuck together. I want to look through the glass, even shine a lamp or a flashlight through there, because the only enemy to this bowl is going to be places that are not sealed together. So, take your time on that. It's super enjoyable. Just make sure that you're holding it very loosely in your non-dominant hand. So there it is. I hope you make one. Thanks for stopping by. You're going to want to take your bowl and bake it